So let's get into some draft talk here.
Do it. I love
you
me some
have
draft
ranked the quarterback prospects out there.
I have.
All right, so we're going to count you guys down from 10 to 1. But first, a list of players that just missed. Tom, what sticks out here?
Well, Luke Falk is a guy that some have liked, and I am not a fan whatsoever. I don't put a whole lot of stock in the combine in terms of throwing as a quarterback, but he was awful. He almost took off Marshall Falk's head on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Falk does not have the arm strength whatsoever. His accuracy numbers are wildly inflated by playing in an easy offense and a lot of short passes there. I am not interested in Falk whatsoever. He missed my top 10. Woodside, I think I like him. I wish he were bigger and had a bigger arm. He's a little bit undersized, not the biggest arm. He could make it, though, as a backup quarterback. He could be one of those undrafted free agents that hangs around for a while as a number 2 or a number 3. Maybe Brandon Silvers falls in that same group. I don't really know why Chase Litton declared early. I thought he should have stayed at Marshall. I think he made a bad decision on that. But he's got some of the size you're trying to find in a quarterback, but a lot of the other stuff is just not there. And then J.T. Barrett, I think he'll make a nice coach, but he's not a quarterback. And he's not even athletic enough, as far as I'm concerned, to move to halfback or receiver or anything. So Barrett will be a 7th-round pick, undrafted free agent. Maybe he kind of sticks around in like a Thad Lewis-type mold where a coach finds him, likes him, lets him stick around, and helps other QBs learn the offense quickly. But he's not going to be a starter. He just doesn't have the raw quarterbacking ability. Someone tried to tell me that Barrett was an option and that he was one of the best ones, but he was underrated because he was black. And I'm like, no. No, dude. Like, he's just not good. So I think it's telling when Dwayne Haskins, I thought, looked better at times than J.T. Barrett. So I like Barrett, intelligent, going to have, I think, a career as a coach at some point. Maybe hangs around as a backup, but he's not a guy that's ever going to start in the NFL.
All right. That's the list of players that just missed the cut for Tom Downey's top 10 quarterback prospects.
Normally we see about 12 guys go at QB each year, so pick 2 guys, maybe Falk and Barrett.
Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Number 10 on the list, quarterback out of Memphis, Riley Ferguson, had a pretty good campaign.
Yeah, look, the stats are there for Ferguson, but as you said earlier, Cam, stats always aren't everything. And he did put up great numbers at Memphis. There were a lot of good downfield throws out of Ferguson. I also want to mention this, though. I'm a big fan of Anthony Miller. I think Ferguson benefited by playing in a relatively quarterback-friendly offense that had a lot of good players around him. And the big concern for me is, and you'll kind of see this when we show this B-roll here, he's really skinny. Like, Riley Ferguson is not built very well, and I am genuinely concerned about his ability to hold up now. He measured in above 210 pounds at the Combine, but when he was at the Senior Bowl, he was at like 200. So I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand the full-on battle that a quarterback takes. He has an okay arm. It's nothing elite. Every quarterback, and by the way, I'll mention this now. When I mention arm strength, I am not talking about how far somebody can throw it. All these quarterbacks can throw it 60 yards. My thing is, how fast do you throw? How quickly do you get that ball on the out route? That's the big thing with arm strength. Ferguson's arm, it's not super strong, but it's going to be strong enough. He left Tennessee. He was out of football for a year. I think Ferguson is more of a backup type. I was hoping, because I saw the numbers and I watched a little bit of Memphis, I'm like, hey, maybe this guy could be like a sleeper, maybe a late draft riser. I just didn't see it on tape from Ferguson. So I don't hate him as a player. I would definitely draft him. He has a round 7 grade for me. Maybe he goes a little bit earlier, but I see career backup here.
All right, Riley Ferguson checking in at number 10. As we move along now to number 9, Benkert, quarterback out of Virginia. What do we make of him?
It depends on which game you watched. And if you watched the Miami-Florida game, you're thinking, oh, man, this dude's like one of the 5 best, at least, quarterbacks in this year's class. Against that great Hurricanes defense, 28 of 37, 384, 4 TDs, and a pick. Great numbers, and yet he still didn't complete 60% of his passes. And a good chunk of those TDs came in that game. And look at the INTs, a lot of high, so at 9, not the worst, but Benkert did take a big leap in his senior year. He was not even on my radar because Virginia was awful the previous season. Benkert didn't do much of anything, and then this year takes a nice step forward, but the inconsistency and the accuracy, it's still not there. He is very much a work in progress. I think he'll hang around for a couple of years as a backup type guy.
How about that comp?
Yeah, look, I saw a lot of similarities on film. They're relatively similar sizes. He's not going to go as high as NASA, but I'll tell you that right now, who Well, I don't think he's going to go as high. Maybe he goes maybe a round or two later. But there's also some red flags medically. He was injured early in his career. He is aggressive at times, often too aggressive there. And the accuracy and the inconsistency, that's the big thing for me. Under 60%, that is a massive red flag for me. If you can't complete 60%, be it in your career or at least just your best season, in today's college football, something's not right. Now, maybe you were hurt. Maybe your offense was just absolutely terrible, but you got to be above 60%. So that's a big concern for me with Benkert. That tells me that, hey, he's just not an accurate thrower of the football. That's the big issue for me. I've seen guys and people that are very high on Kurt. I've seen top 5 quarterback. I'm not there because, yeah, he was great against Miami. That can sway you if you only watch that game. That's why you don't only watch the highlights, by the way. But I just don't see Benkert as being that type of guy.
All right, so he's at number 9 in Tom Downey's top 10 quarterback prospects list. Let's go to number 8 now. We've got Mike White out of Western Kentucky. You like his build, Tom?
Yeah, White's an interesting prospect, and it depends almost on which times of the year you watched him. Last year in particular, not the most recent year, but in 2016, I thought he was really good. And I think that the offensive line got a lot worse this year, and White's play suffered as a result. His numbers are still not bad by any means, even though it was a relatively easier offense here. But with White, I just the arm is there, the accuracy is there at times. But if you're looking for a sleeper, maybe this is your guy. I don't really think sleepers exist all that much in this day and age in terms of quarterbacks in particular because, well, everyone's trying to find one. You don't find.
Everybody's under a microscope,
you just don't find those guys. Yeah. But I see a guy with big arm. The accuracy will not be as good in the NFL as it was in college. His motion's a little bit loopy. He's a former pitcher, was able to hit 90, so I think the arm is there. Maybe that's why you've got a Tom Savage type who has some arm strength but isn't always that there. Big concern for me, fumbles. Fumbled 12 times this year. Now, he took a lot more sacks. Some of those, though, were on him. There were times when White just didn't protect the ball very well, and that's an issue. Another big concern for me, when you've got guys that come from a smaller school like a Western Kentucky, how do you fare against lower competition? Or, excuse me, against better competition? Mike White didn't do it all that well, and he faced below average competition, 3 touchdowns, 7 picks in 9 games versus Power 5 opponents. All of them losses. And transferred from Southern Florida, went to Western Kentucky, had some more success there. I don't think he's that great at progressing through his reads. He's not that great in the pocket, was shown by the sack numbers this year. There's some upside there with Mike White. I could see him going as early as like round 4 maybe, with a team saying, hey, maybe we can groom this guy into being a great, maybe a potential franchise QB down the road. I just don't think he's ever going to get there.
All right, so he's at number 8 on the list here. Let's go to number 7, and you want to talk about sleepers. This guy has been thrown around in the sleeper columns out there in the interwebs. Kyle Lauletta, Tom.
He is not Jimmy Garoppolo. That is not who Kyle is. And he's a fine quarterback prospect. The big concern for me is despite playing with 4 different OCs in college, which, okay, check off the ability to adapt and all that kind of stuff there and deal with the adversity, despite the just great production at Richmond, put up great numbers, leaves us really the career mark holder for a lot of their highest passing yards, TDs, all that kind of stuff. And I like his release. It's good and quick. He's pretty accurate as well. I think he's a smart kid as well, but the arm strength, that's the concern. I don't think he has a very good arm, and in fact, it might even be below average to what you want in an NFL quarterback. He'll have some success in the NFL at the very least, I think, as a backup. But if you're looking for the next Jimmy G, that's not this guy.
Him.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. I don't really have a great comparison for Kyle Lauletta. I went with John Beck because I could see a somewhat small school guy maybe going a little bit earlier than he should have. And I think the Richmond offense had a lot of kind of quick one-read passes. That's fine. Kyle is going to be best as a West Coast quarterback. So if you can get him in that type of scheme, I think he's a good fit. If he goes to the right program, maybe the Patriots take a flyer on him. He could develop into a low-end starting quarterback, but I get the allure there because small school guy, good numbers, good accuracy, has a quick release, but I just don't think the arm is going to be there for him to take that next step among quarterbacks. For the most part, you have to have a good arm because that's the difference between getting the ball in that tight window there, making the throw, or getting picked off and going the other way.
All right, so there's Lauletta at number 7, being touted for his fantastic arm. This guy has been as well, number 6. Josh Allen. Tom, perhaps the most polarizing quarterback in this class. You have him as number 6 on your list. Mel Kiper has him projected number 1 overall. What
cool.
gives?
Well, contrary to what Mel Kiper believes, stats are not for losers. They do play a very important role because they do shed light, as long as it matches up with what we saw on film, with who this player is. And look, in terms of upside, if looking only among upside, I'll start with the positive here. Upside-wise, number 1 QB. Like, he has the arm strength, all the traits you could want in a quarterback. I get it. He's big. He has a absolutely rocket arm attached to his shoulder there. Can make every throw in the book. Has some good mobility as well. Did very well on the Wonderlic test. And yet, can't even complete 57% of his passes. Didn't improve at all this year as a thrower. So why? What's the difference? And why do we have all the traits we want, yet he's just not good actually on the field? I saw this in a completely unironic tweet. If you ignore the game film, Josh Allen is the best quarterback prospect ever. I'm like, well, you can't just ignore the game film.
But Tom, just ignore it.
That's the most important thing. So I get the allure of Josh Allen. He has the traits you want, the upside, the massive arm. But the number 1 most important thing for a QB, be accurate. Josh Allen's not accurate. He turns the ball over. He misses easy throws, and some will say, oh, there were no easy throws in Wyoming's offense. Yes, there were. I've seen Josh Allen miss swing passes by just overmilling his halfback by a few feet. The arm is there. He's mobile. He's got everything you want, but if he's not accurate, what's the point then? Like, you have to have the ability to be accurate in the NFL, or else you're going to be a bust. And that's the concern for me with Josh Allen. I have a 4th-round grade on him. That's being generous, because if you only look at the numbers and the tape, that's not great at all. I know the upside's there, but Allen is not a good prospect as he is right now. You can project him to be great, and I get that, but with the current situation that he is, with the player that he is right now, he's not worth a top 5 pick. He's not worth a 1st-round pick. He's worth a 4th-round pick because the upside is there.
Can you recall another time in your life as an analyst with the differential among the prognosticators out there? Some are saying number 1 overall. You are saying, a 4th-round grade. Can you recall another player like this?
I mean, maybe Jake Locker had the same type of pre-draft hype, and he slid a little bit because he just wasn't accurate either. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen that comp for Allen as well. I think he has maybe more upside than Jake Locker, who was also inaccurate, didn't have the same arm strength. But look, I think the comp is Kyle Bowler. That's who he is. Bowler was not an accurate player, had a great arm, an absolute cannon on that end, so that helps. But I get the allure for Josh Allen. I get that he could be great. So you have to figure out, okay, how do we balance the player that he could be versus the player that he is right now? The player that he is right now is barely draftable. The player that he could be is one of the best QBs overall. So on that end, I have him as number 6 among QBs. I know that the upside is there, but I cannot justify, if I am trying to find my franchise QB, and you're telling me I have to spend a top 5 pick on Josh Allen to get him to be the franchise guy
saying no thanks.
When he's not ready at all to play for year 1, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking that bet. I'll take him on day 3 happily and let him be a great player for me, potentially. And I think in the end for Josh Allen, fit is going to determine how good he is. Where he goes will determine if Josh Allen is a bust or if he can capitalize on the potential. You put him in the right spot, the right coaching staff, the right leadership, the right QB to learn behind, maybe like in New England, for example, he's going to be a stud. If Allen goes to the Patriots, he's going to be absolutely incredible. If he goes like the Jets or the Browns, he's going to bust.
Yep.
Because I don't trust those teams to get the most out of them. And I've seen a lot of various scouts and anonymous GMs say, we do this for a living, trust us. Okay, your track record isn't perfect, by the way.
As if they've never been wrong either, right?
And that's the nature of the NFL draft, but I don't think you can pull the, we do this for a living type deal. Because there is a lot of bust potential with Josh Allen. And I'll mention this as well. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to see Josh Allen capitalize on the potential because he's going to be incredible to watch. And there are going to be throws where Allen makes you go, oh, my God, that was a beautiful thing. And then they're going to be like, oh, my God, Josh, what are you doing? How do you miss that guy? The consistency is simply not there for Allen, and the accuracy is a massive concern.
All right, so there you go. He's at number 6 in Tom Downey's rankings as you are watching NFL Daily here on Chat Sports, presented by Mizzen and Maine, made right in America. These fantastic products.
I like that.
Not just shirts either. We're talking about pants, hats, sweatshirts, so much more. But, of course, they are known for their fantastic sweat-wicking technology, advanced performance fabric shirts. You can wear them anywhere. They're comfortable AF. That's the website there. Comfortable.af. That's how you can check them out. All right, so they're sponsoring NFL Daily here today. Let's summarize Tom Downey's list so far of top quarterback prospects. Riley Ferguson, Kirk Benkert, Mike White, Kyle Lauletta, and Josh Allen there at number 6.
Not a believer. I'm sorry.
Let's go to the top 5. And coming in at number 5, perhaps a quarterback that could go to the New England Patriots, Tom, Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State.
I think Mason Rudolph kind of falls in the James Washington category for me. Yes, the production is there. The numbers were great. But what's actually his great trait? Like, NFL teams want a trait. They want something that they can point to and say, yeah, this is what this guy does great. That's where he's going to thrive in the NFL. That's what we can kind of build around. Is it his arm strength? No, I think he can throw it a long way, but the speed isn't there. And, yeah, he had some great production deep balls, but that was against Big 12 defenses. Those teams are terrible. So that doesn't really check off for me. The accuracy is fine. It's nothing spectacular, but I think it's good enough. In the end, what I kind of view Mason as is he just does enough. Like, he does just enough to be like a game manager type. I think he profiles more as a backup quarterback who can be a low-end starter for you. I think there's some Chad Henne in him, maybe a little bit better athlete than Henne was. It's a good enough arm. He's got good enough accuracy. I think the big thing for him, the Oklahoma State offense to an NFL offense is very different. He's going to have to really adjust and learn to do more progressions. A lot of times it was, okay, James, go deep, and I'll throw you the deep ball. He had some great talent around him as well. Marcel Aitman is a guy that a lot of teams like as a wide receiver. Justice Hill is a great halfback. I just got to see Rudolph do a little bit more in terms of the reads and the progression type stuff there. He can be a low-end starter for you, but I would be very surprised if Rudolph ends up all of a sudden being like the number 1 quarterback for a team and an actual franchise-type guy. Maybe you get a Kirk Cousins type out of him, but I don't think that's who he is right now.
All right, so as we look at number 5 here on your list, Tom, the differential from 6 to 5 to 4 here, kind of walk the audience through it. So you've got Allen at 6. Then we go to Mason Rudolph. We're going to talk about number 4 in a matter of moments here. The differential among those 3.
Well, I think with 6, and that's Josh Allen, is that it's upside versus the very low floor. And that's where we're at with Allen. For Mason, it's more of, I think he can be a nice backup, but I don't know if he's ever going to be that next-level quarterback.
Okay.
Like, that's why I don't think he's going to go in round 1. He's got experience. I think a team like Jacksonville, who wants experienced quarterbacks, makes a lot of sense for Mason here. But Mason does not have the floor does not have the ceiling of a Josh Allen, but I think his floor is a lot better. Like, if Rudolph doesn't become a starter, I think he'll be a nice backup. If Allen doesn't become a starter, I think he's out of the NFL.
I hear you. Okay. All right. So Mason Rudolph is in at number 5. Let's get into number 4 now, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps into the first-round quarterbacks, if you will. Lamar Jackson out of Louisville, a true playmaker here, Tom.
Jackson is not a wide receiver. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I almost put him at 3, by the way. Let's start with the positives for Lamar. The dude is a freak. Like, he is truly the closest thing we've seen to Mike Vick at quarterback because he can run, he can throw. He looks so fluid as a runner, just making guys miss. And despite the concerns of him, he takes a beating, he doesn't take that many big hits. He does a good job of kind of absorbing them or sliding or doing whatever. Does need to slide more, though, overall as a player. And, yeah, he's a little skinny in the arms and the legs. I think you can bulk him up maybe a little bit, but he's just so dynamic. So anyone who tries to tell you, he's dynamic, let's put him at wide receiver, why do you want the ball out of his hands? Get the ball in his hands.
You're just getting too cute at that point.
Yeah, get the ball in his hands. Let him be Lamar Jackson. Yes, that means him using his legs. That's okay. Yeah, you don't want to run first quarterback, but Lamar Jackson really wasn't that with the Cardinals. Yes, he ran a lot. Most of those were by designs. Lamar Jackson has shown the ability to be a pocket passer. He always actually did a great job of keeping his eyes downfield and throwing balls. He makes a lot of highlight reel plays. I think his arm is pretty strong. He has the accuracy at times. I think he's shown the touch. But the big concern in reality is the accuracy. And I find it ironic that certain media members and Mel Kiper say stats don't matter for Josh Allen, but Lamar Jackson didn't complete enough of his passes. Lamar Jackson only completed 59%. The plus side is he improved each and every single year. Had he gone back for his senior year, he would have been above 60. In fact, before his very bad bowl game, he was above 60. We're talking like 5 throws and he's above 60, and he meets that threshold for me at least. So I don't want to hold that too much against him, although it is a concern. What I like the most about Lamar, outside of his game-breaking ability as a runner at quarterback, is that he improved. I like it when quarterbacks steadily improve throughout their college career. That's what Jackson did. Josh Allen did not, for example. And for anyone that says the Louisville offense was easy, that is not a Bobby Petrino offense type there. Bobby Petrino's offenses are very complicated. But I will say this, and you can point to maybe Lamar Jackson's bad Wonderlic test score. I don't think Lamar Jackson has had a very good advice in this pre-draft process. I think Lamar Jackson should have hired an agent. One of the things the agent does for you is A, make sure that you're talking with teams, make sure your pre-draft process is set in the right way, make sure you're prepared for the Wonderlic test. I don't know if Jackson was prepared. It's a test. You got to study for it. I think he's smarter than his Wonderlic test score showed. Mm-hmm. I don't think he studied for it, and I think that's because he doesn't have an agent. I don't know if Jackson's had the best advice in this pre-draft process. That might hurt him a little bit there, but why would you not want a player who can do so much on the ground and has still shown the ability to thrive through the air? I am absolutely willing to take a chance on Jackson. He's not a first-round grade for me. He has a round 2 grade, but I think he's one of the top 50 guys without a doubt. And I would much rather take Lamar Jackson late round 1, early round 2 than, say, the next guy on the list here in the top 5.
All right, well, let's get to that next guy on the list. Sam Darnold checking in at number 3. In our mock drafts, Tom, we have him going to the Cleveland Browns at number 1 overall.
Look, I will start by asking the question, what does Sam Darnold do better than Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield on the field? I don't really know what it is. I like his arm, but I also think Rosen's is better. I think Baker's just as good. Maybe he's got a little bit stronger arm than Baker. And I know the upside's there, but Sam Darnold is not a finished product by any means. Like, there are a lot of turnovers. He reminds me a lot of Jameis Winston coming out, where if Sam Darnold didn't have that comeback against Penn State in the bowl game, would he have been so highly regarded? Because what I saw this year on tape from Sam Darnold really wasn't that spectacular. Like, it was good, and there's definitely promising ability there. But I saw a kind of a wonky wind-up throwing motion that I don't love. I know he's a good athlete, but I didn't see great ball protection. I saw a lot of interceptions, him trying to do too much, him making bad decisions, some accuracy issues. He throws the ball great on the run, but I noticed this, especially against Ohio State. He kind of starts well, gets hit a few times, and then kind of gets thrown off his game.
Yep.
That's a concern for me. When your quarterback doesn't bounce back immediately, doesn't stay well in the pocket, that's a concern. I do get why that happened because his offensive line was awful last year. USC did not have a good offensive line. That definitely hurt Sam Darnold, but he only has 24 career starts. He picked up some bad habits behind that bad offensive line. He makes some bad decisions, and the turnovers are really bad. Darnold had more turnovers than Jackson did this season. That should be a red flag, and yet for Darnold, it's kind of like, oh, the intangibles. I'm like,
the leadership.
Okay, that's a little tough to quantify, but I get it. I suppose I know that's a big deal. I just have concerns about Darnold because right now he's not as good as Josh Rosen. Sam Darnold is not a finished prospect at QB, and that's okay. You want him to sit a year, but Darnold needs some work. He has to improve, I think, with some of his reads and improve with his decision-making. I know that the upside's there, but I would so much rather take Rosen or Baker Mayfield over Sam Darnold. And I don't mean to knock on Darnold. He's a top 32 guy for me, a second-round grade, but I don't want to take a top 5 pick on him when I can get a Rosen or a Mayfield. I think he'll have success. I think he could be a franchise quarterback, but you got to knock some of those bad habits, i.e. the turnovers, out of him.
All right, so he's there at 3.
One more note on Darnold. Because he's not a finished product, the good news is he is very young. If he starts opening day, or I guess the first game of the season next year, he'd be the second youngest quarterback ever.
Wow.
That's pretty insane.
Okay, there he is at number 3 on Tom Downey's list. Sam Darnold. Let's go to number 2 now. Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA, and he's been tied to the Jets a little bit, the Giants a little bit. What do we make of Rosen here?
He's very close to being absolutely pro-ready. I think he's very close to just being a finished product. Now, there are some things you can work on Josh with here, some decision-making, some of maybe try and get his arm up a little bit better, maybe work on some mobility outside of the pocket. But, I mean, his technique and his footwork is great. Like, Rosen is a very polished product as a classic pocket passer type. Not the greatest out there. Can move a little bit, but that's not what you want Josh Rosen doing. Maybe Darnold's a better athlete than Rosen, but that's not a huge deal for those guys. Can get a little happy feet under pressure, tends to fade away. Will get him in trouble at the next level, I think. I think he's an okay, solid athlete, not a game-shattering one by any means there. Pressure can be a bit of an issue for Rosen, but the accuracy's there. Among quarterbacks since 2012, between 11 and 19 yards, Rosen's number 1. That's where he is going to thrive. 76% of his passes were completed in that area. Now, he doesn't have the best deep ball. That's an issue, I think, at times. But his release is beautiful. His technique, his footwork is all exactly what you want. Has some fumbles there. But UCLA last year, Cam, they were not good.
Awful.
I mean, they were bad. I mean, people try to make Jordan Lasley a thing. Jordan Lasley can't catch. His offensive line was not very good. I'm not sure how good Colton Miller even is. So I like Josh Rosen a lot. There was one play that he had the fake spike, was a beautiful dime against A&M. His arm was definitely a little bit off to open the year. Coming off of surgery last year, A&M didn't look all that strong of an arm. I think it'll be better this season. The other issue for me with Josh Rosen, there are some medical concerns with him. He had the shoulder injury on his throwing shoulder, had a concussion this year as well. That has to be checked out. But the off-the-field stuff, the stuff that Jim Mora has been saying about, hey, you got to challenge him or he wants to be challenged.
What do you make of that, by the way?
Good. Like, do you not want that? Like, how is it a bad thing that your quarterback asks why? Isn't that what you want out of your quarterback? You want your quarterback to fully understand the offense. You don't just say, okay, coach, we're going to go do this play. I think with Rosen, he is kind of I think the term thrown around was Renaissance man, likes to do his own thing at times, kind of approaches things a little bit differently. NFL teams at times to their own detriment try to put players all in the same box, and if you don't fit that box of 125% football, we don't want you. And Mora's comments, he viewed as a backhanded compliment. I don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah, I'm going to buy into Josh Rosen. I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. I take him very early in the NFL draft.
So there he is at number 2. And with that, let's get to number 1 on Tom Downey's list, Baker Mayfield, quarterback out of Oklahoma, perhaps one of the most polished players in general coming out of this draft, Tom.
I was wrong about Baker Mayfield entering this season. I'm like, he's a little small. I don't know if he's a product of his system around him, you know. He had Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, D.D. Westbrook, and then this year plays even better after losing 3 NFL players to high NFL draft picks. Yeah, I like Baker Mayfield. The big knock on him, I guess, is his size. I think he's big enough. Drew Brees has done it. Other similar-sized quarterbacks have found a way to make it go. And if the knock is, you can't see over your offensive linemen, linemen are like 6'7", 6'5" these days. So Brock Osweiler can see over him. You got to see around your linemen. So that's not a big deal for me with Baker Mayfield. Some don't like his attitude and his, I guess, his swagger, and I'm okay with it because I think his teammates love him. I think he's going to be the guy that you hate when you play against him,
sure, but
you love him if he's on your team. I think he does well as a leader, and I think his arm is good enough. So it's not a Josh Allen arm, but he's been able to make all the throws. He's a good athlete as well. I like Baker Mayfield a lot. He's my number 1 QB. The biggest concern in the end is that public intoxication arrest he had in February of 2017 where he could not juke the Arkansas cop. That's the big concern for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of that, I see accuracy, I see a good arm, I see great numbers, and I see, most importantly, elevated the teammates around him. That's the best thing out of a quarterback, and that's what I saw from Baker Mayfield this season.
We've got the Jets and the Broncos there as options as perhaps a better fit for Baker Mayfield. What do you think, Denver, the Jets, maybe a team not on that list?
I'll go with Denver. I think he and Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders could have a lot of fun out there.
I agree.
I think that'd be a nice fit.
All right, so there's Baker Mayfield atop the list for top 10 quarterback prospects. Let's summarize the entire list we have here. Riley Ferguson at 10. There's Benkert at 9. Mike White at 8. Lauletta at 7. Josh Allen at number 6. Then the top 5, Mason Rudolph, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield at number 1. Tom, if you're projecting ahead here to all the YouTube commenters out there, where do you think they're going to have the most problems?
Josh Allen not being in the top 5.
I agree.
Maybe Baker being at the first spot.
All right. We'll see what happens. We'll have to wait for those comments to flow in.